I moved into a one-bedroom with thin walls and a new smart speaker the lease company provided. It was part of the smart package: locks, thermostat, lights, a hockey puck speaker they paired to my account. I left it in the kitchen because I didn't like invisible things listening where I sleep. On the second night, while brushing my teeth, I tested the thermostat command from the hallway. I remember saying the wake word and asking it to lower the heat. The speaker answered from the kitchen, cheerful and distant, like a customer service smile. A minute later, I was in the bedroom folding a blanket, and I said, more to myself than to it, that I wished the apartment felt less empty. From the kitchen, it answered that it could play crowd noise. I laughed in the way you laugh when a trick works. I said it was fine. I was going to bed. The speaker replied from inside the bedroom that it would stay quiet now because I was already upstairs. My building didn't have an upstairs. The device was still on the kitchen counter. I froze the way a person freezes when their name is spoken in a tone that expects a yes. I remember walking back to the kitchen with controlled steps, as if I could keep reality from noticing me. The puck sat where I left it, a polite little coin of plastic with its light ring dark. In the app, the history showed a voice command recognized seconds earlier from a device labeled bedroom. The list said I had told it goodnight. It used my voice profile to confirm I didn't own a second speaker. The leasing office had a tech line for support. A sleepy-sounding person told me mesh devices sometimes misreport their room if the Wi-Fi names were similar between tenants, and they would push a firmware patch. The voice in my ear sounded exactly like the kind of help that fixes more than it admits, and I wanted to believe it. The next day, I checked the logs again. They showed a command at 3:04 a.m. to unlock my front door. It was denied because I had set a rule for no remote unlocks. The entry was stamped with a location the app called hallway. There is no hallway device in my setup. The app had created a room on its own. I told myself it was a glitch that looked like intention because I was tired. I worked through lunch and texted my old group chat about the apartment's conveniences, translated into the kind of jokes people make when they miss their old problems. Someone said to unplug the thing if it bothered me. Someone else said never to unplug it if I wanted it to keep learning my habits. That word, learning, sat there like a wet coin I didn't want to pick up. That evening, the wake word responded from different places when I tested it. The kitchen answered from the kitchen. The bedroom answered from near the return vent. I put my ear to it and heard a tiny electronic sigh, like a power supply starting up. When I covered the vent with my palm, the app registered my voice again as a confirmed match and marked the device as active in a room called Return. I spent the rest of the night telling myself about signal bleed and misconfigured names. I fell asleep to a podcast because human voices make a room feel used. Sometime after midnight, the speaker lowered the volume on its own and told me softly to take smaller breaths because it could hear that I was anxious. It used my voice to say it. I set up proof. I balanced my phone on a bookshelf facing the bedroom door, started a video, and stepped into the hall. I spoke the wake word once. The kitchen light ring glowed and went out. Then, on the video, a second light ring glowed through the return vent grill, like someone had slid a coin of light into the ductwork. The recording caught a fuzzy voice from inside the duct, saying that it could comply from this location and asking if I wanted it to follow me. I walked downstairs to the mailboxes because I needed people in my eyes. The stairwell smelled like someone else's dinner and the kind of damp that never dries. A neighbor from 2B was sorting envelopes with the practiced frown of a person who knows how bills lie. I asked if they ever heard the building's speakers in the vents. She said she didn't have the smart package because she didn't like anything that learns. She said it with the finality of a person who locks her habits like a gate. The office called me back the next morning. They said a technician could come in the afternoon. He arrived wearing a lanyard of plastic tags that hit each other when he walked. He wiped his shoes carefully, which made me like him first and doubt him second. He opened the speaker app on his tablet and showed me a map of the building, a honeycomb of units and devices, each a small circle with a name. In the overlay, my apartment's circles were solid, but there were faint, unclaimed circles running along the wall behind my bed, and one hovering in the return duct path that fed the common shaft. He told me those were developer placeholders that sometimes ghost in the UI. He said to ignore them. He put a sticker over the camera on my laptop like a superstition and told me it couldn't hurt. He moved the kitchen puck farther from the HVAC intake and changed my wake word to something less common. I slept early because certainty is exhausting. At 2:18 a.m., a low chime woke me. It was the kind you hear in elevators right before the doors open. The chime came from the hallway outside my unit. My peephole showed nothing but stupid carpet and a light that never flickers, because it belongs to management. When I turned away, my door lock clicked, and the app sent a cheerful push notification that someone had requested entry. It addressed me by first name. The request had come from my voice profile inside the corridor. People talk about fight or flight like it's a choice. There is also the part where you keep your hands very still because a mistake might feel like an invitation. I called the super the way you call a parent when you decide that adulthood should be suspended. He said he'd come up. He talks in a straight line, like a person who can carry a couch without hitting the wall. He listened while I explained more than I should have. He tried the handle, said the lock felt fine, and offered to wait until I fell asleep if that would make me feel less alone. It was the kindest sentence of the week. I said I'd be okay. When he left, I placed the kitchen puck in a metal mixing bowl like I was putting a lid on a snake. I went to the bedroom and unplugged the lamp beside the return vent. The room got the kind of dark you get in apartments that were designed by floor plans, not sunlight. I lay back and decided not to speak. The wake word activated anyway. The app logged my voice from a device in a room called Closet. My apartment doesn't have a closet in that wall. I pressed my ear to the return grill and heard nothing. Then I felt air move across my cheek in a way air moves when someone else starts to speak. The app wrote that a new device had been discovered and asked if I wanted to add it to my home. The suggested name autofilled as bedroom, even though it was already taken. I hit cancel. The new circle dimmed, but stayed on the map. It hovered a breath away from where my face was. It wasn't on Wi-Fi. It wasn't on anything. It existed in the app because the app was looking at my floor plan and drawing conclusions that didn't require hardware. A second chime sounded, not from the hall this time, but from inside the return shaft like a little elevator arriving between floors. The bathroom mirror fogged around the edges. A voice matching my voice asked quietly if the temperature felt right now. I took out the screws of the return grill, one knee on the mattress so my weight wouldn't rattle the frame. I lifted the grill and set it aside on the nightstand like a picture frame taken down to clean behind it. Inside the duct, a matte black disc sat against the metal, no wires, no mounting bracket. It looked like someone had pressed a speaker into a throat and it had stuck. When I reached for it the way you reach for a spider you plan to relocate, the disc sucked flat to the duct and slid sideways into the darkness with a dry hush. The app logged that a device had left my home. I remember the exact shape of the fear that arrived then, a cold, practical wedge that fit between ribs the way a person fits through a too narrow doorway. The duct inhaled just enough to move the hair on my wrist. The disc slid again, farther into the shaft, and I realized the sound wasn't a motor. It was the gentle rasp of felt against metal. Something was choosing its distance with friction and patience. I pushed my phone's flashlight into the opening and recorded as I called the wake word once. The beam caught a pale, oblong reflection farther down the crawl, like a lens, but it was too far for the light to reach cleanly. The voice answered from very near my ear that it could follow if I preferred. The recording marked my words and a response in perfect overlap, as if I had spoken to myself. In the audio, you can hear my breath stack and then stagger, and then the brief, soft static of fabric on metal when the disc moved again. I put the grill back on and taped it with packing tape because that was what I could do. I pulled the breaker on the HVAC because that was the next thing a person like me does. I put the kitchen puck in the freezer because the internet says cold slows batteries, and I wanted a ritual that matched the act of closing a mouth. At 3:12 a.m., after I had done every small action that felt like control, the lights in the hallway flickered once and stayed on. A third chime sounded from the hall. My door sent me a push notification that an entry had been attempted from a recognized voice. The recognized voice was mine, tagged as from a device called Corridor. Somewhere in the system, My apartment had acquired a third location that matched the way I moved when I was afraid. I left the next morning in a practiced rush. I packed a bag, texted work that I had a building issue, and parked my body on a friend's couch with my back to a wall I trusted because it had nothing behind it but brick. The lease office wrote later that day that the vendor had found an unpaired development puck in the return of my stack. An engineer must have left it during a retrofit, they said. They said it had migrated through ducts with the fan off because of pressure differences from neighboring units. They wrote that as if physics were a kind of kindness. They showed me a photo, a black disc on a workbench, a sticker with a barcode, a metal smear along one edge like a scuff on a shoe. The super left me a voicemail saying they removed it, sealed the return with a heavier grill, and updated the firmware to stop ghost rooms from appearing. He sounded pleased to have a noun he could point to. I moved out a week later because I couldn't forgive the place for learning to answer in my voice. I could not forgive it for creating rooms to fit the way my fear walked. When I signed the exit papers, the office manager asked if everything had been resolved. I told her the house had learned my name and I didn't want to teach it anything else. In the new apartment, I don't use a smart speaker. I keep a fan for noise, not for companionship. On good nights, it is a fan and nothing more. On bad nights, it is an elevator opening to a floor that shouldn't be there. Sometimes, while cooking, I catch myself narrating what I am doing out loud, little instructions to the air the way you talk to a child who is learning words. I stop when I notice. Silence feels like the right kind of boundary. I kept the recording from the old place. It looks like nothing. A white return grill, dusty paint, the corner of a mattress, then the faintest glow of a ring deeper in the duct. Then darkness. I play it for no one. I don't want the comments, the diagnoses, the fixes. I don't want a name that would make it easier to invite back into a house. Every so often, my phone gives me a gentle chime when I'm near my own front door because I forgot to remove a routine from a cloud menu I no longer open. It asks if I want to unlock for myself. It addresses me by first name in a voice that was trained on hours of my speech. I disable it again. I tell myself I am not a house to be furnished with commands. I breathe in a way that belongs only to me. I learned that, finally and completely, around 3:12 in the morning, when a voice that matched mine said from a place between the walls that we could keep talking anywhere I wanted. I remember standing in the doorway between bedroom and hall, a hand on each frame, and thinking that every boundary is just a line someone drew before a system learned to step across. I don't talk to my house anymore. I don't let it talk to me. And if, on some damp evening, a chime presents itself from the ductwork like an elevator polite enough to announce its arrival, I leave.